Howdy guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in this video series, I look back on the movies released 10 years ago this month. And this time I want to approach it a little bit differently. I'm going to be looking at the movies that were released in November 2013 while filming this. So you are seeing my genuine reaction, my takeaways from the movie in the moment. So with that being said, let's take a look back at the movies released in November 2013. Alright, the first one is About Time, which is a romantic comedy starring Domhnall Gleeson and Rachel McAdams, and basically the premise of that one is the son has a gene with the men in his family that, you know, he can move back in time if he goes into a closet, clutches his fists, and thinks about a time he wants to move back to. And this is a really fantastic romantic comedy. I remember really liking this. I've rewatched it a few times since it's come out, and everyone that I talked to really loves this movie. Domhnall Gleeson is fantastic. Bill Nighy in a supporting role as his dad is excellent. Just all the way around, this is as good as it gets with romantic comedies. I can't remember something that I didn't really like about this movie, and it just shows like he understands, like in any time travel movie, that whenever he goes back and changes something, he, you know, sets a path forward that is different than his life currently. Like, I remember vividly, there's a scene where he goes back and changes one thing, and he has like a 2-year-old daughter, and whenever he comes back, he has a 2-year-old son. So he's standing there like, where's my daughter? You know, he realizes that his actions have consequences, and it's just really fantastic. I don't want to spoil too much of it. If you haven't watched it, it should be on like Netflix or something. It's definitely worth a watch. The next one is Dallas Buyers Club, which is the movie that won Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto their Oscars. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched this since it came out. I watched it specifically to watch those two performances. It is a very interesting, dramatic story. I remember watching it and being like, whoa, I did not know McConaughey was capable of this. He is truly excellent in this, and so is Jared Leto. Jared Leto's a weirdo, but hey, you know what? I recognize that he was great in Dallas Buyers Club. He totally earned his Oscar. Yeah, I actually read Matthew McConaughey's autobiography, Green Lights, recently, and he goes into depth about this movie and kind of how, you know, taking a break in his career led up to this moment, and just the whole process behind finding the director, you know, really honing in on the story here, some stories that happened during its production, and it's kind of made this movie more memorable for me lately, to the point where I kind of want to rewatch it. I've rewatched a few different clips on YouTube. It's a really sad but also uplifting story about the true story about Ron Woodroof. If you haven't seen it, it's worth watching for the performances. It's not necessarily an easy watch, but I still highly recommend it. All right, next one is Ender's Game, and I won't lie to you guys, I didn't watch this one. I haven't read the book, and at the time, it just kind of looked like a forgettable sci-fi movie, and then the reviews came out, and that's exactly what it looked like. I don't remember particularly making a lot of money. I think Harrison Ford was in that one, but yeah, it's a random book adaptation of a popular young adult book. They were really popular in 2013, and this, like many others, didn't really land with audiences. The next one is Freebirds, which is another movie I haven't watched. That was an animated movie, I think, about Thanksgiving turkeys that escape, I guess. Hey, you know what? They released it during the right month. Maybe should have released it closer to Thanksgiving. Let me see how much money this thing made. Off of a budget of $55 million, it made $110 million, which, I mean, is good return for what they invested, but like, animated kids movie about Thanksgiving turkeys getting released in November, not making like $300 million. I feel like they could have done a little bit better with that one. But then the next movie is Las Vegas, which is one of those sort of movies where they take 4 older actors and they thrust them into like a party environment. The whole shtick of the movie is, look at these legendary actors. Well, now they're being funny with one another for one last time to Vegas, except it's 10 years later and we've gotten like 10 more of the same movie. Really forgettable comedy, in my opinion. Like, who all's in it? Michael Douglas, Robert De Niro, I don't know why I said his name like that, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Kline. So, I mean, A-plus talent. It was directed by John Turteltaub, actually, who, you know him from the National Treasure movies, which I love those movies. Maybe it's just because I was a kid and whenever I watched them, but I've rewatched those films like God knows how many times. But they weren't particularly critically praised, so that makes more sense towards the quality of the movie for me. But yeah, a movie like this is a dime a dozen. If you've seen like The Bucket List or The Book Club or something, you've seen this movie. All right, the next one is The Book Thief. So keeping in line with forgettable book adaptations, we have The Book Thief, which I skipped out on. Can you tell I wasn't a big-time reader in high school whenever this came out? Yeah, well, I don't think this one wasn't a sci-fi. Wait, let me read up on what this book is about really quick. Yes, very, very much not a sci-fi movie. Wow, this movie looks very dramatic, or the story looks very dramatic. Kind of feel bad comparing it to Ender's Game now. The next movie is Thor: The Dark World, which was previously the most hated MCU movie. We had it so good back then. Yeah, who directed this thing again? Alan Taylor, who wasn't brought back for another MCU movie, and it kind of shows why in the quality of The Dark World. It was my least favorite MCU movie at the time. Yes, and in a world where Iron Man 2 existed, that's really saying something. And for me, 2013 was a rough year for the MCU in general, because I did not like Iron Man 3 whenever it came out. It's kind of grown on me with time, and I didn't like The Dark World either. But this movie is really interesting because it kind of spurred off the shift in Thor's character, how Taika Waititi took him in a more comedic I guess, route in Thor Ragnarok, while still keeping him dramatic. It wasn't quite Thor Love and Thunder comedy, but The Dark World was kind of the catalyst involved with getting Thor to become the character we know him as today, because as he was in this movie, it just wasn't going to work. The next movie here is Delivery Man, which was that movie starring Vince Vaughn, where he donated his sperm to a sperm bank, but I guess he ended up fathering like over 100 kids or something. It was based on a true story, and while I didn't go out and see that movie, the premise was very interesting. It looked like it wasn't particularly well received, or it wasn't like praised or anything. If I remember correctly, Chris Pratt was in this movie too, and it's sort of at the end of that run that Vince Vaughn has, where he was a leading comedy man. Now I just know him from that prison movie that he was in, which the name of that escapes me now, but this came out in the same year as The Internship, which was not very good. Maybe that caused me to not go see Delivery Man. So in spite of its premise being, interesting, I didn't go out and watch it, and it looks to be at the very end of Vince Vaughn's run. I don't think it made a particularly large amount of money. Yeah, it made $53 million on Thanksgiving weekend, so far from a hit. Very unfortunate for him. And hey, look, right after that, on the same day, on the 22nd, we had The Hunger Games: Catching Fire, my favorite Hunger Games movie. At the time of this, I just filmed my review for Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes like 20 minutes ago. So very fresh in my mind, this movie. The best Hunger Games movie by far. They upped everything that made the first movie good and made it even better. A great twist at the end of that film too. We had Philip Seymour Hoffman coming in, Jennifer Lawrence still at the height of her powers, owning Katniss, that role. Oh my god, Catching Fire is such a good movie. If you haven't watched the Hunger Games movies, I could skip the last two if I were you, like the two Mockingjay movies, not Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I actually really like that one. But man, Catching Fire, watch the first Hunger Games and then watch Catching Fire. Man, Catching Fire is an amazing movie. Okay, then right after that, we had Nebraska, which is an Alexander Payne film starring Bruce Dern and Will Arnett. And I remember whenever it came out, I was really excited to see what Will Arnett could do, like in a very serious Alexander Payne film. And I really liked him in the movie, but Bruce Dern stole the show for me. I really only knew him from, I don't know if he was doing Tarantino movies at that point, but I didn't really know him that well. Whenever I watched this movie, though, I wish that I had seen all of his other performances, because he just knocks it out of the park with Nebraska. He got nominated for an Oscar that year, lost to Matthew McConaughey, but that was a really excellent movie. Man, I forgot. That's why I like doing this series. I had completely forgotten about Nebraska. Now here I am talking about Bruce Dern for the first time in 10 years. But then we had Philomena, a movie starring Steve Coogan and Judi Dench. And I remember watching this with my mom and really liking it. It was nominated for Best Picture, but man, I could not tell you what this movie is about. I am truly drawing a blank on this. I remember really liking it though. Let me look at the premise here. Okay, an elderly woman who has been searching for her son for 50 years, and Steve Coogan is the guy trying to help her find him. Okay. Man, for a good movie, it was forgettable for me because I completely forgot about that. Yeah, I remember really, really liking it, so maybe I need to rewatch it. I guess I recommend it because I remember really enjoying it. It was nominated for Best Picture, so it's not a bad movie. Just, I guess it's forgettable for me. Sorry. Then we had Frozen. Oh my god. Sorry. Frozen is 10 years old. That's crazy to me. How is Frozen 10 years old? Oh my god, I'm so old. I mean, what's there to say? Frozen was crazy popular whenever it came out. We're 10 years after. I mean, it's still mega popular now. 10 years later, it made $1.2 billion. Frozen 2 was released 6 years after this. They're doing Frozen 3 and apparently Frozen 4 now. Whatever that song is by Idina Menzel, for some reason I'm drawing a blank on what it's... Let It Go. That was a mega hit. Frozen is still huge right now. And you just saw me have an existential crisis because I can't believe it's 10 years old. But yeah, there it is. Very last one that I want to talk about here is Oldboy, which was a remake of a foreign film directed by Spike Lee starring Josh Brolin. And I remember being super pumped through this movie because the original Oldboy is a great movie. And Spike Lee... Unfortunately, Spike Lee's kind of hit or miss for me as a director. He's made some of my favorite movies. He's made some of my not favorite movies. And Oldboy came out, and it was just kind of underwhelming, unfortunately. You're coming off of the heels of what many people call a masterpiece, and you're always going to be held up to that standard, and it just didn't live up to that hype, unfortunately. So, man, I wish we were ending on a higher note there. Maybe I should have ended with Frozen, but again, I was doing this off the cuff. Thank you guys so much for watching this. Let me know if you like this video. I really enjoy taking a look back on the last 10 years. And if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, y'all.